The Amazon jungle, one of the world's richest natural environments. This ecosystem is itself a sort of giant organism made up of numerous layers, from the dense forest canopy right down to the waterlogged soil. An enormous variety of plant and animal species are found here and nowhere else on Earth. Many of them haven't even been discovered yet. The calm mountain forest in French Guiana is bursting with life. Forest neighbors fear and fight one another, avoid or ignore other species, are born and die every instant. It's a green hell for some, a plant paradise for others, but a place where all take part in the daily struggle for survival. Relationships are constantly shifting as species prey and are preyed upon in the time-honored law of the jungle. But here, like in the savannah, there is one species which has nothing to fear. The jaguar is king of the Amazon forest and the most noble of the continent's big cats. However, this feline shares his domain with another species, perhaps even more fearsome, the Eciton ants. On the ground, at the foot of a giant tree, the Eciton army is on campaign. These thousands of ants are all sisters, daughters of the same mother, their queen. The army's sole task is to find prey and kill it, as these soldier ants have nearly 1 million mouths to feed. The Eciton have a tried and tested battle tactic, the steamroller strategy. A great battalion spreads out along a front line stretching some 20 meters, and the successive lines of soldiers catch small animals by surprise. It's certain death for those that can't move quickly or don't have a solid shell. The Eciton react instantly to tactile stimulation, so the more the victim struggles, the more the ant's instinctive aggression is excited, which draws new attackers. There are few insects that manage to escape the ant's grasp once attacked. Like many insects, ants' behavior is inborn, determined by genetic programming. However, mammals are different. This young jaguar is nearly 2 months old, but it still lives by its mother's side, as it must be taught everything before it's able to fend for itself. As yet, the young cub has not learned how to hunt, but for the other forest dwellers, it still represents a potential threat. The mere smell of these big cats is enough to send a sloth up into the safety of the trees. And very quickly, as the mother jaguar has just sensed the sloth's presence. The cub is curious about everything that moves and still oblivious to the dangers of the forest. In a hostile environment such as this, the young jaguar needs the close presence of its mother if it's to survive. But it will still make many mistakes before it learns what to look out for. Ants have no need of education, as right from the start they are programmed to carry out daily tasks in a routine that hardly ever varies. Mornings are devoted to hunting, and bit by bit the spoils are carried back to the nest. For the colony to function efficiently, these warriors must work cooperatively, and although they're sisters, they're not all the same size. The small ants have cutting mandibles, and the larger ants pointed ones. These distinctions mean each ant has a particular role in the capture and transport of prey. By afternoon, the eciton have begun heading back to the nest. They're nomadic ants and will soon be starting their daily move. Although insects have nothing more to fear now from the soldier ants, there are other dangers which await them. Fortunately for the Callichroma, it's equipped with a very tough shell, which discourages the nephile. Under the tree canopy, towards the end of the afternoon, the forest seems calm. But in fact, it's a hive of activity, because the eciton are on the move. The jaguar cub has awoken from its siesta. Sniffing around its territory, it discovers a miniature army which has divided its playground in two. The parade seems never-ending. This is a new experience for the cub, which is watched attentively by its mother. While enriching, it's also painful because eciton ants carry a sting and powerful venom, which they use freely, but especially should their egg nest be challenged. The new generation is the ant's most precious possession after the queen herself. The larvae are fully developed in just under 3 weeks. However, at this tender age, they can't bear the midday heat, which is why the workers wait until late afternoon to begin the move. The egg nest safety depends on the speed and efficiency of the workers. The activity of the whole colony is directed towards moving as quickly as possible. To speed the egg's transport, hundreds of ants make bridges, stairs, and gangways out of their own bodies. These ants are capable of moving in spurts of up to 1 kilometer an hour, the equivalent of 150 kilometers an hour for man. It's vital they find a new bivouac site before nightfall. There are other species which prefer to wait for the night to go into action. The Callichroma is not a nocturnal species, but these others are off in search of food. Although darkness gives them cover, it's still a dangerous mission, and each insect has its own particular protection. The most attractive-looking prey often has the most dissuasive weapons. This caterpillar secretes a liquid distasteful to the praying mantis. The caterpillar is safe, and the mantis will have to find another, less offensive victim. More ant colonies have appeared and are marching through the forest undergrowth. But it's a different species, which has come to stalk the Amazon nights. Certain animals, like this toad and grasshopper, spend the day hiding under camouflage. By night, they dare to reveal themselves. It may seem surprising, but ants are active in even greater numbers by night than by day. These monster ants, the Periponera, are 3 centimeters long, and just a couple of their stings are enough to kill a man. The praying mantis is careful not to approach them. The grasshopper doesn't attract the attention of the red ants. They're too busy carrying their strange loads. In fact, they're not soldier ants, but vegetarian atta ants, leaf cutters. The cutter ants are helped by smaller ants, which prevent parasitic flies from laying eggs on the leaves. Atta ants will cut up all sorts of different plant forms. The diversity of their harvest is reflected in the variety of the forest. Unlike the nomadic eciton ants, atta ants are sedentary. They always use the same familiar paths between their feeding grounds and their underground nest. Over the years, they've marked these routes with pheromones, smelly secretions which act as signposts. Using this system of marking, the atta ants have built up a whole network of roads through the heart of the forest. Relative to their size, these ants have the biggest muscle fibers of the whole animal kingdom, and it's their giant muscles that enable them to carry up to 40 times their own weight. The Atta's strength is mirrored by their endurance. In just one night, bushes, even entire trees, can be completely defoliated. Once the carrier has reached the entrance to its underground nest, it is relieved by another team of workers and free to set off again. Near the Essiton bivouac, the ants are still not very active. Some are waiting for the first sun rays to warm up, others are drinking the dew. Many insects start their day by washing and cleaning themselves. Each has its own particular routine. While reptiles need the morning sun to kickstart their metabolism. In the tropics, the thermometer climbs quickly, and in just a short while, these cold-blooded creatures are awake and ready for action. Atta City is buried a meter beneath the surface. The ants have all returned to the colony, but not to rest. Even though they've worked throughout the night, the leafcutters are still busy in their underground garden. These ants carry some 10 kilos of leaves back to their nest every night. The plant matter is chopped, chewed, and ground up into a compost, which the ants use to grow mushrooms. It's the mushrooms which serve as a food source for the larvae and worker ants. The young are raised in the production sites, with 100 or so chambers scattered throughout the underground city. The workers gather small bundles of fungal fibers to feed the larvae. Atta ants have different tasks according to their size. The smallest can get into the tiniest corners of the mushroom beds, while the bigger ants act as sentries, keeping watch over the galleries and nest entries. The jaguar cub already knows its way around its territory. It's even familiar with the river. Jaguars are skilled swimmers, and they love water. They're often to be found stalking the forest's many riverbanks. For now, the cub is more interested in playing than eating, and the riverbank provides some interesting encounters. The tortoise doesn't respond to the jaguar's playful advances. The crab is certainly more dynamic, but its defenses are painful. So the stoic tortoise will be victimized again. Play is not a behavior Eciton ants are familiar with. They leave their bivouac every morning to go hunting, and if they come across another ant's nest along the way, they will loot it. These larvae are nourishing and easy to carry. The Eciton don't kill them. Instead, they are stored for several days in case of rain, as the ants are unable to hunt when it's wet. Even the coral snake gets out of the way of the advancing army. Although this snake has the most poisonous venom of all the Amazon forest reptiles, its weapon has little effect on the ants. Instead of escaping, some species try to camouflage themselves. If this tactic is to be successful, the locust must remain completely still. The Callichroma is unable to keep motionless. It shifts its legs and antennae and draws the ant's attention. On the ground, the Eciton soldiers continue their advance. But for now, their presence hasn't stopped the Callichroma from pursuing its goal in life, to find a mate. Perched on a dead balata trunk, the Callichroma is on the lookout for females and not paying the ants much attention. Some are luckier than others, but if the male Callichroma waits long enough, a female may come along. However, competition is fierce, and the ants are dangerously close. There are few species which aren't menaced by the Eciton. However, these birds are watching the ants with interest, in the hope of catching a fleeing insect, or even robbing the Eciton of one of their victims. Other opportunists wait for the camouflage specialists to make a fatal mistake and reveal themselves. That's what this liana snake is up to. The lizard has attracted the serpent's attention by attacking a locust. and the prospect of a meal of locust-stuffed lizard is worth approaching carefully. Opportunity missed. The feast will have to wait. This new raid has lasted nearly 4 hours and resulted in between 1,500 and 2,000 victims. Dissected and mutilated, the insects are carried back to the bivouac by some of the troop, while the army continues its campaign. This grasshopper is experimenting with the camouflage method of defense. The julid, a type of myriapod, is saved by its foul-smelling secretions. But the grasshopper's escape route has landed it right in the path of a cohort on the march, and its struggle has focused the ant's attention. The hunt has come to an abrupt end, and in just a few minutes, the army makes a sharp turn and doubles back on itself. It is no doubt the position of the sun which has sparked the ants' retreat. In the afternoon heat, the prey risks drying out before it can be carried back to the bivouac. And the pheromones, left by each ant as a signpost for the next, disappear in the sun. At the bivouac, several hundreds of thousands of eciton are gathered to protect the queen and the egg nest, which is installed in the heart of the ants' organization. The day's spoils are shared between all the members of the community, workers and larvae alike. The bivouac has been set up at the foot of a giant tree, a perfect site during dry weather. But the dry season is drawing to a close and a storm is approaching. The eciton must find a new shelter for the larvae, which are now at the last stage in their development, the delicate phase of cocoon weaving. After a quick site inspection, the ants opt for an underground hollow, and the workers begin immediately transferring their egg nest. As the rain begins to pierce the tree canopy, the ants manage to set up a bivouac annex underground, following an energetic mobilization. This is a real nursery, where the larvae can weave their cocoons under the guard of more mature ants. In the tropics, rain showers are often as brief as they are sudden, and the sun is already shining again on the bivouac. The hunters, caught out in the rain, are making their way back to the colony. Meanwhile, underground, most of the larvae have already finished weaving their cocoons. Rain is probably the eceton's worst enemy. If it continues long and hard, it can prevent soldiers out on a raid from returning to their nest. Scent marks are washed away, and the ants can no longer find their bearings. During the rainy season, it's not unusual to see small colonies of eceton ants wandering around the forest floor, looking for their nests. For once, the rain hasn't done too much damage. It served more as an alarm. Most of the colony has gone in search of a new bivouac site, which is better sheltered. In the nursery, a rare event has just taken place. An unusually large ant has just broken out of its cocoon. It's a young queen. This ant gives off certain pheromones which encourage workers to take particular care of her. Although competing eceton queens fight each other, it's not a physical combat like bees. Instead, they use their pheromones to try to draw the most number of followers. But it's already time to move on. The majority of the colony march ahead of the two queens, which are a good distance from one another and barely visible behind their close guard. Sentries keep watch along the length of the route. The right of precedence is respected, and the queen mother marches ahead of her daughter. But these daily migrations have damaged her feet, and she can't move quickly. So the young queen soon catches up with her mother's group. The proximity of the two queens and the intermingling of pheromones confuses the ant escort. The procession stops suddenly in disarray. However, this holdup could put the queens in danger, and angry guards with their mandibles raised swarm all over the immobile queens. The sun is setting, and the ants must move on and set up the next bivouac before nightfall. The young queen has now overtaken her mother and is in front. The enormous bunch of ants splits up as a majority move to join the new queen's procession. An important number of ants now accompany her, swelling the ranks of her train, which is moving increasingly quickly. Any insect which makes the mistake of getting too close to the escort is immediately attacked. Bridges are built and removed along the army's route to speed its passage. It's now too late for the other colony to follow behind. The cohort loyal to the old queen turns back towards yesterday's camp, which is still quite nearby. The Queen Mother's colony has been reduced to a fraction of the size it was. Nature has seen to it that the young princess will assure the continuation of the dynasty. If the old queen has enough strength, she'll spawn a new generation and her colony will be restocked. If she dies, all her workers will die as well. Night or day, whether animals live alone or in colonies, individuals must ensure the survival of their genes if the species is to perpetuate. A single leafcutter queen carries the genes of several million individuals. The worker's priority is to feed the new generation and thereby ensure the queen has a sufficient number of followers to serve and protect her. The Essiton have a new queen, but their genetic programming hasn't altered. No sooner are they awake than they're out hunting. The Essiton are not a threat for the iguana. In fact, the ants do the reptile a service by ridding it of the parasites lodged between its scales. The Essiton squadron has reached the galleries which access the Atta's nest. At the entrance, Atta sentries have already been attacked by the first Essiton scouts. Soldiers invade the galleries, but a pheromone emitted by the Atta sentries alerts the rest of the colony. A meter underground, the first mushroom bed has already been attacked. The Essiton are looking for prey to capture, but here they find only fungi and inedible gardening ants. The Atta rely on their giant guards to defend their nest. At first, the Essiton seem to have the upper hand. They outnumber the Atta guards, and they're armed with a sting. The Atta guards have only their mandibles, but they use them like powerful shears to decapitate their assailants, while they themselves are killed by poisonous injections. The complicated organization of the atta's nest makes it difficult to loot thoroughly. The larvae are scattered throughout 100 or so chambers, of which the Eciton have found only 1 or 2. The Atta guards have put up a determined defense, resulting in meager spoils for the Eciton, a mere dozen nymphs. The Eciton begin their retreat, making their way back to the surface, leaving behind them a tangled mass of dead and dying ants. Outside, most of the army is still engaged in small skirmishes. A large megasoma tries to protect itself by hiding under some leaves. But a hurried escape seems the only way to rid itself of these predatory ants. Meanwhile, what has become of the king of the forest during these miniature battles? Has the young jaguar finally learned to hunt? No, it still seems to be out looking for playmates, and is intent on distracting the attention of a coati who's hunting for food. The jaguar cub really does just want to play. However, its mother, ever watchful, has other ideas. It's through playing and observing its mother that the cub will develop its own hunting instinct. But it's a little too early for this jaguar to live up to its royal reputation. The Eciton colony, with its new queen, is now at the peak of its cycle. This afternoon, a community of nearly 1 million ants is getting ready to move again. The new workers have all hatched out of their cocoons, and from the young queen to the youngest soldier ant, all are sisters in the Eciton task force. A million individual organisms, or one sole unit, the colony? The Eciton are at once ferocious predators and self-sacrificing individuals whose behavior is directed toward the good of the colony and the survival of the species. This tendency is particularly apparent once the bivouac has emptied out and the eciton's complex living structure is revealed. Every eciton ant can become a construction worker. The first ant to come up against an obstacle freezes when it feels the contact of another ant trying to climb the same obstacle. A new wave of arrivals grasp each other's pincers and mandibles and in turn become immobile, forming a bridge of thousands of individuals. When food is plentiful, a generation of winged male eciton hatch. Once they're mature, they leave their colony to fly towards other eciton nests to fertilize the queens. In this way, each colony's genetic stock is renewed and evolves. Even the dangerous soldier ants are capable of transforming into a motionless crowd to form a sort of carpet, providing a dry passage for the rest of the colony to cross without getting wet. Although the eciton appear invincible, red beetles have succeeded in living off of them parasitically. Found throughout the Amazon basin, the beetles imitate the ants' pheromones and tactile contacts, which allows them to steal some of the prey the eciton capture on their raids. Night falls again, and the leafcutter ants are once more out harvesting the forest in French Guiana. They seem unperturbed by the earlier eciton attack. Here in the Amazon, from the novice jaguar cub to the perfectly programmed warrior ants, each individual has its unique place in the ecosystem.